We're on.
Good evening. Welcome to the Warwick School Committee Special Virtual Meeting. Pursuant to Executive Order Number 20-05 issued by the Governor of the State of Rhode Island, this meeting will be conducted by electronic communication only. Members of the public wishing to access this meeting may do so at https://youtu.ve/G4VWZ, capital T, lower W, capital I, capital R, capital Q, capital E. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order and do the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the
Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to get a vote to go into closed session for discussion and/or action regarding those items of business exempt from open meetings under general laws of Rhode Island, RIGL 42-465, A1, A2, A4, A8, A9.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. We are now going into executive. Good evening. We're back into open session. I'd like to take a vote to seal the minutes of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. I'd like to take, no votes were taken in executive session at this time. So on to new business. Discussion update, reopening of schools update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I turn it over to Ms. Danbrook and Mr. McCaffrey, I just want to, a couple of comments about opening. I would say, overall, the openings really, really great. I've been around at the high school level, and I've really been impressed with what I've seen with the teachers and the students. I also know some folks do have some concerns around the positivity or the number of folks in quarantine in Warwick going forward. So what we did do is on our website now, in the bottom, you can see a link from the state. It's called the COVID-19 data page. If you click on that now, and you go to the bottom, there are several tabs. One tab is called the cases by school and learning style. You click on that, you get real-time data for Warwick, and you can track each school if you want to see how many adults and or students are either quarantined or COVID positive. You can also track it by number of students in distance learning or number of students who actually are in the building. So it actually has some good data. I would say the data lags behind by about a week, but it still is really good data from the state. So I wanted to offer that to the parents listening and to the teachers. So with that, I do want to turn it over to Ms. Danbrook and Ms. McCaffrey to say a few words on just the opening in terms of elementary, middle, and high. Let's start with Ms. Danbrook first, please.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school committee, Dr. Thornton. Students, staff, and families received reopening information for the new protocols and procedures with the additional students attending. Teachers were very excited to see their students in person, and students were also excited to see their teachers and their friends. So everyone's happy to be back in person. COVID protocols are in place and being followed. Drop-off and pick-up procedures are going well at most schools. It's taking a little longer with the additional students and also with without the busing happening. So when busing starts again, it will be a lot smoother. Breakfast and lunch services have been working very well. Building cleaning crews and custodial crews are doing a phenomenal job. I can't say enough. Some principals see the need for additional building aides, and I know Mr. Ruggieri is working with those principals to staff the schools as they see the need. And also all stakeholders are being very flexible and very positive. And also just a reminder that distance learners are still receiving a 4-day education as well. Thank you.
Thank you. On to Ms. McCaffrey, please.
Madam Chair, members of the school committee, we're now on day 3 of the reopening. The first 2 days were set aside for 6th and 9th grade students in a hybrid model. I'd like to take a moment to recognize our custodians for doing an outstanding job. Buildings are very clean. They're on top of everything. They're in bathrooms, they're in hallways, they're popping into classrooms as well. They're doing an excellent job. We also have, I want to take a moment to recognize our IT staff. Our IT staff, as this is the first time that the high school teachers have been back, are receiving tremendous amount of support that they need to make sure everything's up and running and functioning properly in the classrooms, and that's a credit to our tech staff. Teachers seem to be excited to be back, that we're in the building. They wore their new outfits. They look fantastic. The kids were excited to be back as well. Arrival time and departure time went well. It's a little bit more traffic than we had in the past without the buses, but the schools have well thought out plans. If you ride by Warwick Veterans, you'll see a sign on each entrance, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, clearly marked. Toll gate, you'll see it's clearly marked at the building on what entrances for students to go into the building, whether they're in the A building, the B building, 2nd floor, 3rd floor. It's they're well organized. There's a lot of thought that was put into this by the administration, teachers, and clerical support within the building. So I think it went very well. A lot of positive comments I've seen on social media, and that's a credit to our staff. I'm looking forward to next week. I mean, today was our first return at 50% with all grades. So we're able to cover the classes, able to support the students, and we did it without any major glitches. So credit to the schools.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee members?
Madam Chair?
Go.
Yes, Mr. Cornell.
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Thornton. So I just want to say I'm very glad that now the numbers of COVID are available to the public and that they can just log on and look at those numbers. So thank you very much for doing that.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Mr. Testa.
Thank you. Ms. Danbrook, Dr. Thornton, Ms. Danbrook, Mr. McCaffrey, Mr. Oliver, anybody and anyone who was involved in this. A lot of time and hours and effort went into this. I think the rollout went well. From what I'm hearing, your assessments are spot on. I just want to congratulate you and the staffs at the schools, the teachers, the TAs, everybody in this whole thing. I mean, the overused phrase is it takes a village, but in this particular case, it did. So I'm very pleased, and I just wanted to compliment you on what I consider a job well done.
Anyone else? Well, I'd like to add that I went to Tollgate the other day. It was the first day, and as I was approaching the door that you enter, our community police officer was there, and he jumped out of his car to say hi to me. And all he could say, I said, "How's things going?" And he said, all he could say was the drop-offs. I said, "How's it going?" directly for him. And he said it was easy because the teachers were wonderful and they were all outside telling people where to walk. It was really organized and he looked thrilled. So I too want to thank everybody involved for getting this up and running. And I also want to say, especially to the teachers and TAs, thank you for what I was told by the police officer for going way beyond and making sure that everything goes smoothly. I know we were short-staffed. I want to thank Dr. Thornton and Mr. McCaffrey and Dr. Taylor, for all stepping up to the plate when it was needed. And you know, we're hopefully gonna get through this. And I want to just, I'm pleased. I'm pleased so far. With no other, Ms. Bacchus?
Ms. Bacchus, you're muted.
You're muted. Can't hear you.
Ms. Bacchus, you're muted.
Can't hear you.
I don't know if your mute button, it might be at the bottom left of your screen. I'm not sure what device you have. It's a microphone. It should have a line through it. If you click it, it'll. There you go.
Can't hear him.
No.
Well, you unmuted yourself, but we still can't hear you.
Yeah, something's wrong with your sound.
No, Madam Chair.
So there's an arrow, Mrs. Bacchus, that is on next to the microphone. If you click the arrow, there's a selection of microphone buttons, and then you can pick a different one. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Amelot.
Right here.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Adams.
Well, I just wanted to echo the sentiment that you and Mr. Testa put forward to the teachers, TAs, the administration, everyone really stepped up to make it all possible. So thank you.
Ms. Bacchus, are you still silent? Okay, I'm sorry.
Wait 1 minute.
Okay, we're waiting 1 minute. Take your time.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Cornell.
Yeah, so I also like to say, I would like to thank the teachers and TAs and the custodians and the administration, because like I know this is not easy thing, especially at Tollgate, because they had a big disaster there with the administration quarantine. So I'm glad that that it went smoothly, and I hope it continues to go smoothly. But like, and I know many of you are putting yourselves at risk, and I know it's not easy, but I thank you for what you do and for what you do to teach our children. So thank you.
Jerry has her hand up.
Yes, Miss Ruggieri? Karen actually puts.
Yeah,
Good evening. I'd like to jump on the bandwagon as well and thank the human resources staff. They are working day and night,
Absolutely.
getting up at 3 in the morning. Excuse me. So I would just like to give kudos to them as well.
Okay, since Ms. Bacchus cannot communicate, she did send a message so we could know what she wanted to say, and she would like me to tell her, to tell everyone, she would like to thank the cleaners and everyone else as well. We could not do it without them. Thank you, Ms. Bacchus. Okay, let's go on to the next item, number 2. Discussion update of secondary students, Rhode Island Department of Health COVID-19 testing.
Ms. Danbrook.
Ms. D'Ambrook. Thank you. It's not on my thing.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the school committee, we are very excited to announce that the Rhode Island Department of Health is hosting a COVID testing event at Veterans Middle School in the gymnasium on Monday, February 8th. The testing will be for students attending middle schools and high schools. Consent forms are being sent home tomorrow and must be returned by January 29th. The Rhode Island Department of Health will be given the PCR test. Testing will take place between 8:30 and 12:30. This is a one-time event. Parents and guardians will be assigned a time to bring their children to the testing site. There may be a limit on how many students can be tested. The results of the PCR test will be available between 24 and 48 hours at portal.ri.gov.
Thank you, Ms. D'Ambrook. I would just like to say, I hope people take advantage of this. I think it would be in the best interest of our secondary schools to keep going forward and trying to control the virus. I think it's excellent. And they did people, I don't know if they're aware, but they did this as a pilot program. And I believe they used Pawtucket as one of the things, and it went very well. So I'd like to tell the community to please take advantage of this and let your child get tested. Anyone else comment? Okay. The next issue is discussion action, WTU memorandum of agreement, secondary lunch.
I think those are being.
Right, Ms. Ruggieri? I think she.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Administration withdraws items 3 and 4.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ruggieri. On to 5, discussion action, secondary reopening / cleaning issues.
Madam Chair, thank you. As we all know, we did have several communications a few days back of some folks in the city concerned with students using wipes to clean their immediate area. Given those concerns, I did contact RIDOH to get their official opinion on this. The committee received this letter, I believe, a couple of days ago from Dr. Alexandra Scott. Essentially, as you know, the letter says, part 1, we know the CDC, some folks have referenced, has a cautionary piece on their website around students and wipes. RIDOH does say on this that the CDC guidance is often vague and requires interpretation. They're basically saying, generally speaking, that guidance is for regular times, not COVID-19 times. So they deem it perfectly appropriate for grades 6 to 12 to use wipes in a school setting during this pandemic. So I wanted to make that clear. They did go on in the memo to talk about what cleaning products they'd like to see districts use. The product we have currently, the Sandy Wipe, as I'll have Mr. Oliver and Mr. Baxter talk more about it, they did say, while our product is safe for home use and use in businesses, there are products that are a little better. They want a product that is 70% or more alcohol and or 3% hydrogen peroxide. So to kind of talk a little more about that, what that means, I'd defer to Mr. Oliver or Mr. Baxter to talk about, the wipes and what we're doing so far this month for the wipe conversation.
Kevin, you want to go, or would you like me to take it?
It's up to you, Rob. If you want to go first, that's fine.
Yeah, I'll speak to it a little bit. So we received this guidance from the Department of Health, as Dr. Thornton mentioned. It's the Department of Health being the authority having jurisdiction, and so where they said again that it's just this is it would be better to use the alcohol or the hydrogen peroxide wipes. And so what we did was in a scramble, we went out, we identified vendors, and we have gone out and purchased with your consent the enough wipes to get us through the month of February. We're using wipes at a rate of about 30,000 wipes a day, and so there's a chunk there. And yeah, so we went out and purchased them. We had at the time validated with other districts who are using the same or similar protocols, and so we're not the vanguard here. We are using established practices to go ahead and maintain safe work surface for the students. Go ahead, Kev.
I also want to chime in that we're going to get through the month of February and possibly find another alternative for the schools, and make sure that we're asking DOH for their best practices and best chemicals that we should be using.
Just keep in mind, committee, the EPA website lists a plethora of products. The trick is, are those products in stock during a pandemic? So that's where Mr. Oliver and Mr. Baxter come in as far as finding the products that fit the criteria and are available. So we are confident, though, we have our first batch of these products, and then we'll come back to you in February for a purchase for the rest of the school year. So
to your point, I'm sorry, Dr. Thorne, I forgot to mention, so the wipes will be arriving in district on Monday. We placed the order today. Actually, we've got it confirmed, and so we'll be all set with the intent, as Dr. Thorne mentioned, of coming before you at the next February monthly meeting with an order to get us through the end of the year.
So happy to answer any questions. Once again, just to kind of circle back, it is permissible to use wipes grades 6 through 12 in a school environment per RIDOH.
Chair?
Yes, Mr. Cornell.
So Dr. Thornton, so just so the community knows, so currently we don't have the staffing to wipe down their classrooms before the students change their class?
In our modeling, as you know, early on, we were looking at having we have staffing now for all the bathrooms, common areas, hallways. You'll see that in the schools. But in talking to our team, to staff every room, as we did the calculation, you need around 4 minutes per room to have one adult go in and clean all the areas. We would need around 50 cleaners per middle school and per high school, 200 cleaners. As it is right now, we have around 50 cleaners in the district doing all those extra areas, and that's kind of where we are. So like other districts, I called around, no one was able to achieve what we initially had modeled, having adults do every classroom. Everyone else is pitching in. Some districts, teachers do it. Some districts, kids are involved. Some districts, they both pitch in. It really depends on the district. But yeah, so that was our thinking early on, but we couldn't achieve it with the adults going into every classroom.
Okay, thank you for telling the public that.
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes, Mr. Testa.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Thornton. Thank you, Mr. Baxter. Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Dr. Thornton, I'll echo what you said. I think the initial plan was highly ambitious, really, really ambitious. And if you can't find the bodies, you can't find the people finding 200 people is, all BCI checked, by the way, is difficult. So I think the plan B is a good plan. If I'm being honest, I think our communication strategy was difficult. I think we kind of messed that up a little bit. But as far as the plan that's in place, I think is fine. Mr. Oliver, you and I had a lot of conversations over the last couple of days trying to find appropriate items. And I only say that because part of the business I'm in is that. And I just have a concern, as I mentioned, about a 70 or 80% alcohol wipe to wipe down a table. I have a concern about odor in the classroom. I have a concern about flammability. So I think we bought ourselves a little time, which is fine because these are okay by DOH. I just think that, you know, I'll gladly help in a search to find other alternatives that are more viable, because some of these things are going to be very, very difficult to get, even going, you know, in the out months through the end of the year. So, but I want to commend you on just the level of work that has to be done to do this, and sourcing products in a pandemic, which in many cases is difficult, and I know that firsthand. So I just wanted to compliment you and your staffs on that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Ms. Backus, I think.
Ms. Bacchus, try clicking off your microphone again. Nothing?
Ms. Backus, if you call in my cell phone, I can put your audio on.
That's a good idea. Looks like she's working out. Well, while we're waiting for Ms. Bacchus, hopefully she can get her microphone going, or, oh.
No.
No? Okay. Call, Ms. Bacchus, call Dr. Thornton's phone and he can put it on speaker so you can talk. Can't hear you still. It's too bad.
Just dialed in.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting, I'll just speak.
Hello.
Oh,
Hello.
okay, Ms. Bacchus.
Oh, geez, Louise. That was traumatic. I kind of lost where you are.
We're talking about the wipes.
All right. I do have a question on that. Get terrible feedback.
I can turn off your mic on your computer, if you could.
Oh, I know. I got to turn that down, right? Hello?
Better.
Why'd you, please?
You're good.
I'm muted. Hello?
No, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, because I just turned my volume off for the other stuff. I've got a couple of calls, and I've been told that the only people that are being given wipes and stuff are the classrooms, and that other areas like main offices and things like that are not being given wipes. And I'm wondering if that's true, and if it is true, why? Because we have all kinds of people coming into the main offices in different places, and we should be wiping down universally.
I can answer that, Ms. Backus.
Oliver?
So we're dedicating all the wipes to the classrooms for the children to use to wipe off their workstations. We have people in the building presently that can be called on to sanitize and disinfect a main office, a guidance area at any given time. It's just a matter of making a phone call to the head custodian, and the sanitizing team will come up and rectify the problem immediately.
That is not efficient.
Excuse me?
Actually, I'm sorry to say this, but that sounds ridiculous. Why are you going to have people, and I'm sorry, but, you know, can they bring their own wipes in? I heard they can't.
No, they can't because of the possibility of cross-contamination.
All right, so this sounds ridiculous. They need to be given wipes. And
Ms.
I don't care
Backus.
how that happens, but
Ms. Backus,
You know,
after Monday, we'll be able to give them wipes. But the priority right now with the children, and we had support staff that could sanitize the main office areas, the guidance areas whenever needed.
well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Okay.
I think we're saying Monday, that problem is no longer a problem. Is that correct, Mr. Oliver?
That's correct. Dr. Thornton, we have the support staff available to take care of all those areas that Ms. Backus is referring to. All that has to be done is a communication with the head custodian, and those areas will be cleaned thoroughly and immediately.
Mr. Baxter?
Yeah, I'm gonna hold now until we get to item number 5. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Baxter?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So right. So I just want to confirm we are on item number 5, right? So I just wanted to recap. So we when we shifted to placing wipes at the students for the students' use, we did procure 86 cases. So about 48, I want to say 480 canisters of wipes. And so we had a rather limited supply. And again, for this first phase, for the first week, we were relying on the cleaners to take care, and we still rely on them to take care of all of the common areas, just like we do in the offices around the district, right? So, but going forward, starting on Monday, I just want to be clear, we will have, again, enough, an ample supply that there will be wipes placed, not only in the classrooms, but also for the student use, but also available for the faculty and staff.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. Ms. Bacchus?
Yeah. All right. I didn't realize we were on 5 because I got lost in the mute. But Mr. Oliver, what does our staffing look like in our secondary buildings for both first and second shift?
The staff first and second shift?
How many people do we have at Pilgrim on first shift? And what positions are they?
I believe we have 7 on during the day. And I'm trying to.
What are the positions?
What are the positions?
Yeah.
They clean the building, sanitize the building through the course of the day.
Are those contract employees?
Contract employees and a combination of our employees.
So you're telling me that on first shift, you have 7 people at Pilgrim?
Doing common areas and, yes, and bathrooms.
And second?
We're trying to staff appropriately on the second shift. Right now, we're giving overtime to union members to sanitize and disinfect behind the normal people that work night. We have 6 people that work there regularly. We're trying to have someone shadow each employee to sanitize as they clean the classrooms.
And what about vets?
It's pretty even across the district. We're trying to keep it even staffing. As we get more people in, we're staffing appropriately.
Mr. Oliver, please tell me the truth.
Excuse me, ma'am?
I said, please tell me the truth.
I am telling you the truth.
Well, then I think that you don't know what's going on.
I can pull up the list if you'd like, and I'll name the people's names off. Or I can send it to you.
All right. How many people do you have at Windman?
1 second. I'll pull up my documentation for you. You said Windman?
Windman.
Presently, we have, it's looking like we have 1, 2, 3, 4 through the course of the day. And we have various people working overtime from our union to shadow the 3 permanent people that work at Women at Night.
How many do you have at Tollgate?
1 second, let me pull Tollgate up. Presently, we have 4 additional on top of our regular custodial staff.
What is your regular custodial staff during the day?
2.
2?
Correct.
Who
ma'am.
are they? I mean,
Mary
positions.
Manson and Mary Manson and Joel Torres. Those are our permanent.
Didn't Joel get a promotion?
Joel is temporarily taking a building mechanic position, so we would have a sub filling in on his backside of the custodial position.
And what happens if you don't get any subs?
That's what we're struggling with every day now, ma'am, with staffing.
Mr. Oliver, you don't. I know what's going on.
Okay.
All right?
Well,
I know that we don't have enough people of our own staff, not contract employees. I know that they're not in there every day. Let me speak. Let me speak. You'll have your turn. You'll have your turn. I know that we are very short-staffed, and that we're having trouble for some reason getting people to apply, and that some days you have 2 or 3 people. Who manages and assigns work to these folks?
who places them? Is that what
Who's
you're
in
asking?
charge? Who's in charge? Who in the schools is in charge of signing work and things like that to the contract employees and to
With the collaboration
custodians?
with collaboration of Ms. Higgins and the head custodial staff, we work together with the head custodians to come up with a schedule and a daily routine for the cleaners and the sanitizers to handle through the course of the day. In our December 15th school committee meeting, I commented on and to the entire school committee that staffing was a major issue that the task force was worried about. I was very upfront with that. I never hid it. I was always forthcoming about making sure that everybody was aware the difficult time we were having getting custodial staff at this present time. I work very closely with Ms. Ruggieri to get staff in. It's just very difficult at this point to get people to come in and work, Ms. Backus.
Mr. Oliver, I know that is true, and that's why I am so concerned.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are the responsibilities of the head custodians?
The head custodian is responsible for delegating the daily duties of everybody that works in their building.
And what happens if those people don't respond to them or refuse to take? I mean, first of all, it's supervisory function to delegate duties.
And we do work very closely with our head custodians. And if there's always communication. There's memos that have been put out regarding this issue. If there's anything,
I have one.
Okay, if there's anything that comes up, they're supposed to contact Ms. Higgins, Mr. Mercuti, or myself so we can rectify the problem. And if we're not hearing about it, then we can't fix it, Ms. Backus.
It seems to me that those head custodians are basically the supervisors, the managers of the work there.
They're the lead in the building, correct? They are to delegate work out through the course of the day, set up if there's a special setup for an event. Yes, they work closely with the other people in the building, correct?
I have a protocol sheet here that says when these contract employees come in, please show them how to punch in, the head custodians to show them how to punch in and out.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that they put the name of the school on the time card. They need to be on time. They can't leave without informing why would Rick at Tradesman?
Could I just
Have-
chime in for a second? I'd prefer that we're not naming individual employees and positions.
No, this
if we
isn't
want.
an employee. This isn't an employee. This is the manager or whomever.
Either,
at
I
Tradesman.
I prefer we stick to positions if at all possible.
The manager at Tradesman. So don't use anybody else's name. The manager at Tradesman. Why is he being given? Why do our employees have to give him their phone numbers and communicate with him? These are private cell phones.
Ms. Backus, everybody was asked if they would be willing to hand out their cell phone, and everybody was quite okay with it when it was asked. We literally asked everybody if they would be okay to give their cell phone out, and those people said yes, it was fine. We would never do that. We do not do that. We do not give people's personal information out without their permission.
I just want to interrupt for a minute. Mr. Baxter has been raising his hand. I think he has something that might help out right here. Mr. Baxter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I was, it was more of a question to Ms. Bex. I was trying to understand what the core issue was that you were trying to get to at the time. So that we could address that specifically. I wasn't sure where what the.
Happy to do that. The core issue here is that I am very aware that people are working very hard. I'm very aware that most of our schools, not the elementary, but our secondary schools, including Windman, including Tollgate, including vets now coming, are working short. And that it's a catch as catch can as far as the folks that, the contract employees that come in from tradesmen. And I think we really need to figure out a way to recruit people because we have hardly any subs left. And as you have told us, people don't want to work. And I don't know why they wouldn't want to work second shift. But it is very concerning. It's also very concerning that head custodians are responsible to supervise, yet they're told they're not supervisors.
The head custodian is responsible for the staff that works in their building to make sure that they are doing their daily duties on a regular basis. That's what their job description states. I can share those with you.
Thank you. So that puts them in a supervisory position, correct?
No, it puts
Of
them in
the
a lead
staff.
position. They are
No, it
paid.
puts them in a if I have to tell, okay, look, this is very serious, and I'm not here to play semantics with you. If they are responsible for the people, if they're responsible to tell people what work they are to do, how they're to do it, to train them, to, tell them if they're not working that they need to work, those are all supervisory duties.
Okay, I totally agree with you, Ms. Backus, but this is the first I'm hearing about these type of things. Everybody was asked if we could use their cell phone number so Rick could contact them to see if there was any issues with his employees. Direct line of contact. We thought that was the best route. This way the issue could be handled immediately from tradesmen because they have to deal with their employees. They hire and fire them.
I understand, and I've heard some of the situations in some of the places, and that's fine. But I think that our people are not responsible to tradesmen. They didn't set up the contract. They're not supervisory, or they are. But we have to decide who's who and what's what, and how we're going to support people, and how we're going to get more people in there because our people are ready to lose their minds. Some of them.
I'm going to interrupt for a second. Dr. Thornton would like to speak.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I can't speak to Pilgrim or the Middles, but I was at Tollgate past 3 days, walking around a great deal. I was extremely impressed with the multiple cleaners in the building. I saw zero issues. So I do take offense with characterizing it as we are understaffed. Quite the contrary. I thought Tollgate went extremely well, and I saw zero problems there.
They are working their butts off.
Thank you, Ms. Bacchus. Anybody else like to add anything?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Adams.
I just wanted to ask you again, Dr. Thornton, like in a public setting, in terms of what I brought to your attention before was the labeling on the wipes had specifically mentioned to wash after use, and obviously that can go along the lines of like the rash that is like mentioned in terms of warnings, and just make in terms of making sure that whatever wipes that we are getting, they are safe for kids to use, and that it's not gonna like hopefully is like the most mitigating in terms of risk to any kind of student.
Understood. I think I'm going to go to Mr. Oliver. Kevin, can you talk about the SDS sheet and what's on the label and how those two can be different?
So what happens with the labeling on the bottle? Throughout the years, the SDS sheet is like the go-to sheet. That gives all the current updates and where the chemical has been revised, changed, if an allergen has been taken out of it. I'm sure Mr. Tick could attest to this also, that the SDS are the go-to sheet to look at what the reactions are and what could cause any issues with contact to skin or anything of that nature.
Madam Chair, if I may. I'm sorry, Mr. Adams.
I was just gonna say now, in terms of like again, like the label can be different from what the SDS sheet says. Like, will it say like in terms of do they need to wash their hands after this after use or whatever it may be?
The SDS sheet may vary from the label because they've made changes with the chemical makeup, so it doesn't have a reaction anymore. They do update their SDS sheets. You can when you get an SDS sheet, you look at the top of the sheet. It should say the last time it was updated in order to verify the most current SDS.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Testa?
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Thank you. Mr. Oliver is right. The SDS sheet is where you go. If you ever had an accident with that, you run to the SDS sheet. You need to have them booked at the locations. It talks about storage. It talks about ingestion. It talks about typical reactions. Labels on boxes. If it's a consumer labeled box, sometimes the labeling requirements on the consumer side are a little bit different. And in Mr. Oliver's example, sometimes the vendor will update the product, so the SDS sheet is updated, but the label on the box is used up. So it could be 6 months, it could be a year before the label itself is changed. But I would caution anyone who thinks that any type of a cleaning product, whether it's straight alcohol, whether it's quaternary ammonium disinfectant or anything like that, virtually every single one is going to have some sort of a warning label on it, because there's no guarantee that someone won't have a reaction to alcohol, whether it's isopropyl or ethanol or any other type of chemical. So that bar is impossibly high, in my opinion. So, you know, if whatever product gets used, my guess is there will be some sort of a warning. There's going to be a warning not to ingest. With an alcohol wipe, it's going to say don't ingest it and keep out of reach of children. But, you know, a typical 17-year-old versus a 4-year-old with an alcohol wipe are two different set of circumstances. So, again, the SDS sheets, whatever product we settle on, obviously we should have it. We have to have SDS sheets at the buildings, I think, by law. So I just don't want to have an impression out there that we're going to have an eco-friendly, you know, citrus-based cleaner that's going to kill COVID. So we just have to be careful on what our expectation is. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? I just have a couple. I was also sent the bottle and by several people, and I'm glad to get the explanation of the SDS sheets, because I can understand why they were alarmed by it, because it said wash hands thoroughly with soap and water after handling and before eating, drinking, chewing gum, using tobacco, or using the toilet. So I can understand why there was alarm here. I just want to say that when this all came to fruition on Sunday, I wasn't too pleased. I knew people thought it was maliciously done, and I don't feel that it was maliciously done. I just think that it was a little bit shocking because when we voted, we were anticipated having all the cleaners because that's what was presented to us. In theory now, we understand that there's a shortage, and I think people have to understand there's going to be shortages in everything. We're going now that we've got everybody running in all the schools. We got all these people going. We got the secondary going. We got elementary 4 days a week. We're gonna start seeing, people having to quarantine. And we could be in a situation like Woonsocket where we have to close a school because there's a shortage of subs. So if there's a shortage of subs or people to clean, people need to understand that this is a pandemic and we're already short of these people before the pandemic. So please be patient and try not to be alarmed. I have faith in in the staff here that they're going to do their best to keep everyone clean, safe, and we're going to just try to get through this. I know a lot of people were angry and they thought it was malicious, and I realized it wasn't done maliciously. I think we're all just taken by surprise, and we all felt immediately like I did, like, whoa, I didn't vote for this, and I don't know if I would have voted to bring people back if we didn't have the cleaners. But after many phone calls on Sunday between Dr. Thornton and our attorney and other people, I realized that many other districts are doing this with the kids helping out. And I'm not one to say, well, they do it. I'm not, every time they say, well, this school does this, so we could do that. I'm not very big on that. But in this situation, because it is a pandemic, I have to agree that I think this is the right way. I saw people that didn't mind on social media, and I saw people that were freaking out over it, along with people calling me and emailing me. So I just want to thank the staff for trying hard. I do agree with Ms. Bacchus. I think everybody is, especially the custodians, are working like crazy. And if we can possibly keep looking for people, I know that they would greatly appreciate it, and I think all of us would. So keep up the work trying to recruit more people. Anyone else?
How many contract employees do we have, cleaners or sprayers or what have you? How many do we have on the day shift in the secondary schools?
I don't want to misspeak about a number. Could I get back to you with that information? I'd be glad to get it to you first thing tomorrow morning.
My thing is that, Mr. Oliver, it's not your fault, but I don't believe that there is a proper complement of people to do what needs to be done in our schools. And so I'm worried about that. We don't have the materials. I'm worried about that. At the bottom line is the school committee's responsible.
Ms. Bacchus, I totally agree with you. Just like in my December 15th communication to the school committee, that was one of my biggest worries, was the fact that we were not going to have enough staffing when we started to roll out the secondary opening. I was very vocal about it. We are doing our best. We are working very diligently to bring people into this district in a timely manner in order to protect every child and staff member in this district. I'm doing my very best job to make sure that's being done.
I know, but you can't be everywhere at the same time, Mr. Oliver. There's another issue that I've heard from people about our own staff and about the company that's doing the work for us, that these people spend or seem to spend either a lot of time in bathrooms or they're right out in front with their phones. So my thought was, and use this as you may, if the head custodians are going to be supervisory staff, which I think just by the mere fact that they're called head custodians, they're obviously supervisory staff for the building because they assign work. But we could give them pagers and everybody locks their phones up and don't bring them in, because I see that as a huge problem. And people are telling me that it's a huge problem.
We understand that, and we've been working very diligently with the outside company to rectify that issue.
It's not just the outside company, Mr. Oliver. That's why I'm saying they should not be able to bring their phones in.
That would have to be a district policy. Not, I can't do that, madam.
You know, we can give our head custodians pagers and they can use the phone. They have the keys. They can use phones anywhere. And obviously they'll disinfect it. So I just have serious concerns that, you know, some of the stuff is going on, and it's the less people we have, the more people get burnt out, the more trouble we're going to be in. So I want to nip this in the bud now.
I
want our employees to
totally
know that
agree.
they're valued. And if we have really good people who are working for this company, maybe we should test them out for 60, 90 days and then offer them a full-time job. Because we do need to a lot of employees in that area.
Dr. Thornton would like to add something?
Madam Chair, thank you. I think it is really important we don't generalize and just talk about people say people aren't working hard. I think that's grossly unfair. The people I saw weren't on their phone. They were cleaning. So once again, it's important not to generalize and just talk about people saying. It's unfair and it's wrong.
I understand what you're saying, and I don't think it happens as much on first shift as it does maybe on second shift, but it does happen. And that's why I say, you know, people go into bathrooms, and I'm not saying that everyone's doing it, but we do have a problem, and I don't know, we can have a personnel meeting about this if you want.
I would love to do that, Ms. Backus, if you're willing to.
I am very willing to.
Okay, maybe you and Mr. Baxter can get together and take care of this issue.
Ms. Cobden is the chair.
Oh,
And Ms.
Ms. Cobden, yes.
Mrs. Ruggieri would like actually to speak.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify, Ms. Higgins and Mr. Oliver contacted me last week about the shortage of substitute custodians. We met today with the WISE Union leadership to brainstorm ways to get people in. Our employment tech, Donna, has been doing a phenomenal job. She's got postings out through the DLT website, through our website, through School Spring. And we are doing everything in our power to get people in. They're just, people are not applying. You know, we have a few people that came in. You know, we're processing them as fast as we can. We have to get PCI checks. We have to go through everything. But it's not for lack of trying. We are trying to get as many people in as we can. I just wanted to clarify that.
I understand that, and I know how hard, and we've talked about this many times, Ms. Ruggieri. Ms. Ruggieri, are we doing, who's doing the BCIs and NCICs?
I'm sorry, who's doing the BCI what?
For, see, having two groups of employees, with new people coming into our service, do we do NCICs, which pick up if they have any criminal behavior or anything nationwide? Or are we
Yes,
just checking in Rhode Island under BCI?
No, we do national and state through the Attorney General's office.
Okay, what about tradesmen?
Yes,
correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but that's done through the company and they submit it to you, correct?
correct. We have all the validation of clear BCIs, federal and local.
Okay.
Anything else? No one else? Okay, I say we go on to the next issue, which would be discussion action of school committee approval of purchases over $1,000.
Mr. Baxter.
Mr. Baxter.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for placing this on the agenda and willingness to consider. what we're asking tonight is that the school committee reconsider the recently adopted, a year or so ago, change to the approval threshold of $1,000 and return back to $5,000, especially if I'm asking for two reasons, really. If we're planning to go back to the regular monthly school committee meeting first, having this $5,000 threshold, returning the $5,000 threshold will improve the turnaround time. So basically what happens is if we got an order, just be not an order, but a request or requisition for an order just before the cutoff date, it could be another 4 or 5, or just after, I should say, the cutoff date for an agenda item. It could be another 4 or 5 weeks before the next school committee meeting, and that just holds up things. And so teachers and department heads and folks who are looking for relatively small amount, it doesn't take much to get over $1,000. It just delays that. And so what we would, this would help us be more responsive, especially as times are changing. It would allow us to move more quickly and be more agile. And then obviously there's a benefit to the processing. Again, if we're going to a monthly meeting, processing, these large number of smaller orders to be presented to the school committee in advance of the school committee is, that image of processing a pig through the snake, so to speak. We've got this bunch to get through the pipeline, and this would just help us smooth it out. And I certainly recognize the need and the desire for supervision and oversight. And what I would like to propose, if you'd like, is that we could provide a report as part of my monthly fiscal report of all of the purchases that we made, in the interim between school committees of, say, $1,000 to $5,000 or whatever threshold that you as the committee would deem necessary. So I submit that to you for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions or entertain any ideas.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Bacchus.
It was put into place for a reason. And the chair has the ability to approve emergency purchases over 1,000 when they're reasonable. We've had problems in the past, and I just don't. And is there any? Are we going back to only monthly meetings? It's the first I've heard of this.
Ms. Bacchus, I'm thinking of every other week unless something occurs like what happened for this meeting to occur. So
every other. Excuse me. Go ahead. Sorry.
I would say every other week, but I mean, it all depends on what is happening. Obviously, this is a time where we all need to communicate more than normal. So Dr. Thornton actually has.
I wasn't done.
Okay, Ms. Bacchus.
Every other week is twice a month, basically, on most occasions, on most months.
Like I said, if there.
Which is why we had weekly set up so that we were all set to go in if we needed to. And if we didn't need it, we didn't have to have a meeting. But they were scheduled so that we could use that time if we needed it. And during COVID, with things going up and down and changing as quickly and as furiously as they are, I know people don't want to go to these meetings, but we're all sworn. And our responsibility is these schools, and I don't want to get caught up in not having meetings that need to happen because people don't want to come to them. This is a bad. Our teachers are in school, and our kids are all, our kids are in school, and we're going to get to another issue in a minute, but I think we really need to look at that.
Thank you, Ms. Bacchus. Dr. Thornton?
Madam Chair, just to clarify, in talking to Mr. Baxter, this idea in the agenda was predicated on the idea that was circulated to meet once a month. And given that, and what I call the game speed of a district, the $1,000 limit with a meeting once a month is not practical, we will slow down. So if you meet twice a month, you could keep the $1,000 threshold. But if you don't, if you go once a month, you will slow down if you don't increase the threshold.
I don't understand what the problem is. This has been working fine. This is the first that we've all heard about this being a problem. I mean, this has been going on for over a year, where it's been $1,000 threshold. And yet this is the first time I've heard that it's a problem. Mr. Ferrucci never approached us that it was a problem. And we should be meeting more often than once a month. That's our main meeting, but especially during COVID. But I don't understand why this is a problem now, and it wasn't a problem for the past year.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Adams?
I think something else that kind of needs to be considered in deciding on this is that like whether or not we do meet less often than every week, it gives a little bit more flexibility in terms of backing up. Yeah, I do understand with the previous finance director there was no issue, but also we are currently in the state of a pandemic, and if something does come up, he doesn't have to wait for a meeting if it's $3,000 or whatever it may be. And I think, especially if we are going to less frequent, it could help smooth things out, personally speaking.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Cornell?
Yeah, so while at first I was hesitant with this idea because of my concerns regarding financial accountability, I spoke with Mr. Baxter. We had a very good conversation. He explained to me how this has been causing delays because you have to bring this to school committee, has been causing significant delays. So I will support this, however, on the condition that every month Mr. Baxter publishes all amounts, all expenditures of $500 to $500,000. So ourselves, the school committee, and more importantly, the public can see and look at what's going on. And we can have something in the agenda, like instead of consent, it would just be like, does anyone on the committee have any questions about this? And if they do, then they can ask. And if they don't, then we just move on. But I think that should be every monthly meeting. We should have that so we know what's going on. But I understand that requiring a consent causes delay. So that's why I would support this. But I believe we need to know what's going on, and the community needs to know what's going on.
In my experience as the former chair, it has never created a problem. And if there is a problem, they can go to the chair who has the ability to make the decision.
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes, Mr.
And I'm not, just one
Oh.
thing. It's
Oh,
not
I'm
that
sorry.
we don't trust anybody. It's not that we don't trust anybody. But we are in very, very dire financial straits. And nobody knows that better than our CFO.
Mr. Testa?
Thank you. Mr. Baxter, thank you. Couple of things. I support this. And Mr. Cornell, I think you meant up to $5,000, not $500,000, right?
Yes, I said $5,000.
I thought-
No,
I
you
meant
said
5,000.
Okay. So Mr. Baxter, I support this. A simple, for lack of a better word, check run on what the expenditures were are fine. I think we all know what the fiscal situation is in the district. I trust Mr. Baxter to be a good steward of those funds. I remember what the impetus of this $1,000 limit was. It was a bit of a tempest in a teapot, in my opinion. But I trust Mr. Baxter and his staff to manage the money well. I don't, and you know, for us to have to approve $1,000, I think is silly. We're all adults here, and they're qualified individuals. They're more than capable individuals. There's no, I don't know. Show me the potential. Or no, not potential. Show me the mismanagement of the funds. It hasn't been there. So, you know, for me, I'm fine with this. As far as monthly meetings, I'm fine with that too. I don't think we need to meet every week. I thought it was more of a short-term thing, and I was fine with it for a while. I don't think we have to meet every week. We could call an emergency meeting if we have an emergency. But, I would like to get back to monthly meetings. I think that's much more the norm among districts. I don't think Warwick is any different than any other district in the state as far as anything that would require us to meet weekly. I just don't think we have to. So I would support a monthly meeting, and I would support Mr. Baxter's suggestion. As long as you give us monthly or at every meeting, give us the run of, so we know what it is. As far as making it an agenda item, Mr. Cornell, I'm not sure what will we be debating there, because the expenditure will have been made. And to my knowledge, on the consent agenda, I mean, geez, I can't think of anything that was not approved from that consent agenda. So I guess what I'm saying is I trust Mr. Baxter to do the right thing. So I would support it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Cornell.
Yeah, so regarding it being on agenda, so it's just like, even though the expenditure would pass, I think it's good for the school committee just to be able to ask questions, because the idea would be, we would get the documents and the committee would be, it would be posted for the community too on the school department website. So we would be seeing the documents, and if we had any questions of this past purchase, we can ask them, and then so the committee can hear as well if they're tuning into the meeting. And regarding the I think why the confusion with the 500,000 is I said 500 to 5,000. So that's why.
No, you said 5.
But I meant 500 to 5,000, because right now it's 1,000 to 5,000. So actually with this, then we'd have even more financial accountability, because we'll be able to see the finances down to 500. So it'll be a step up with that, and we will still have financial accountability because we'll be able to see what's going on. But in this case, it'll be just things will function better because you wouldn't have to wait till a school committee meeting for these purchases to occur.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
Mr. Colonel, well, I think I understand your general sentiment. I think realistically, for us to be looking at expenditures of $500 or $627, I think it's silly. It's just silly. I mean, that's not, the expenditure will have already been made. So you're talking about oversight. If you want oversight, then don't authorize any expenditure from 500 to 5,000 until we approve it. Now, I mean, with all due respect, okay, Mr. Baxter is a professional. Everybody on this screen who works in administration is professional, okay? They've had much more experience in their line of work than any of us have. I trust them. And when we say, show me everything $500 and show me a $500, your $600, your $700 expenditure, to me says we don't trust them. And I won't sign on to that. There's been no, in all the years, well, I'm going to take that back. In the last decade or so, and I'll go back to say, as far as from when Mr. Ferrucci came on board, there's been nothing that I can think of that would lead me to think that they didn't know what they were doing with the money. They were hiding expenditures or sneaking expenditures. I just don't. I haven't seen it. I don't expect it, because if it happened, it would have been rooted out and it would have been rectified. So I think we got to focus on bigger issues here. And by doing this isn't it. This isn't it. Trust Mr. Baxter to do the right thing.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Cornell.
So regarding the 500 amount, it has nothing to do with any distrust with Mr. Baxter. Like, I have complete trust in Mr. Baxter. I think he'll be good for his school district. He went through the Warwick School District. Like, I think he's going to do a great job. It's just the public perception. And like, we did this move, and I think at the time when we did about 2 years ago, it was a good move at the time for financial accountability. And by doing this, it would look like we're scaling back financial accountability. So why not go down to 500 so we can, and we're not going to go over like line through line. It just would be available to us and the public, so people would be able to see the expenditures down to 500, so they know what's going on. And I spoke with Mr. Baxter about the 500 amount, and he was okay with it. Like, as long as we do this, he was completely okay with it. So it has nothing to do with spying Mr. Baxter. I just want to make that clear.
Yes, Mr. Baxter.
And I just wanted to mention, if that's what the committee decides, I'm very happy to, again, just to repeat and to clarify, I can give you a list of, even before the expenditure, before we cut the check, I'll just make a list of all of the requisitions that we processed between the school committee meetings up to $5,000. And if you want $500, it's just a threshold on a report for me. It's easy to run that. So I'm happy to do whatever you'd like. And we can, and as far as the question of, is it an agenda item, I can just attach it as an appendix, if you will, to my monthly fiscal report. So it would just be the same, the same presentation and added schedule. I'm very, very happy to accommodate whichever direction the committee decides to go.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. Ms. Bacchus?
This was done for a reason. And I don't think that during COVID that we should stop it, but I guess you all are in agreement. But there were issues, and they weren't issues that Mr. Ferrucci or Mr. Baxter would necessarily pick up. There were shipping costs and all kinds of things like that. There were things being purchased that could be purchased for less money. There were real issues. That's been much better since it's at $1,000. And again, I don't know of any problems with this until now. As far as having meetings weekly or monthly, I'm going to say again, we had Tuesdays. We had every Tuesday. I don't care what day you pick, but we had every Tuesday set aside as a possible school committee meeting. That way, if it was needed, people were already on notice. If you're trying to set up an emergency meeting, people can't make it. People can't always make it, or we have to rework our schedules to get here. Right now, or how it was up until January, people were on notice that there could be a meeting on Tuesday, and all we had to do was say, yes, a meeting's happening. But now, talking about emergency meetings or twice a month meetings or what have you, this is during COVID, and that was the only reason that we went to potential weekly meetings, and it's been very, very busy. And even without public comment tonight, we started at 6, and it's now 8:15. So I think people should think about that, so that we're not, and again, I mean, we had some very, very late monthly meetings when we had meetings once a month. And I think there is way too much work to be done. We are the 3rd largest district in the state. 3rd largest.
Could I just chime in for one? Could I just chime in for 1 second, Madam Chair? We're just,
on the agenda.
I know we're talking about monthly meetings in the context of the bills, and I think that's fine as the agenda is posted, but that discussion as far as the monthly meetings piece should be tied specifically to the bills, not just the general topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm sorry. I'll rephrase that, because we were able to pay those bills, and we were able to authorize the supplies and different things that were needed under that. And we knew what was going on, and we knew why. And I still don't understand why it all of a sudden is a problem when it wasn't a problem in December.
Mr. Baxter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to, if I may, just address that point of Ms. Bacchus. It's not that there was no problem or frustration on the part of the order initiators. It's just that the folks understood that was the process, and so we just dealt with it. But the reality is as folks are trying to order things, especially if you're ordering something that can be shipped quickly, for instance, to have to get the order, even if you're meeting on a weekly basis, for instance, to get an item on the agenda, they would have to prepare the stuff, get it in at the end of say the first week. The week of the agenda, the cutoff of the agenda is basically the week before the meeting, and then you've got the meeting, and then afterwards. So it was delaying the throughput at which we could order, and then again the task of just preparing all of the documentation, getting everybody was just it is a large exercise that consumes a lot of resources that could be better used, improving the classroom. So this would just make us more responsive, and I hope you can support it.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. Any other comments, questions?
Madam Chair?
I had my hand up first. I would just like to say that based on principle and experience, I can't support this. Thank you.
Mr. Cornell?
I just had a question for Mr. Hennius. Will we have to create a new policy for this? Because I remember we had to approve a policy to create this change. So would we have to approve another policy to change it back?
Mr. Cornell, let me take a look. You do have an expense policy. I'm not sure. I didn't recall that we actually revised the policy itself, but we very well may have. If we do, what I can do is I can work with Dr. Cecil, and we can make the appropriate changes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I'd like just to add, Mr. Baxter called me during the week to give me an update on everything that's going on. And a lot of the things he said were enlightening and trying to move the district forward. And some of it has to do with paint and smaller items to kind of pretty up our schools inside, which I can't disagree with. And I do know during just this week, I did get 2 phone calls for 2 very important items, one of them being the whites. And of course, I think Nathan got that one and we approved it. The other one was Chromebooks for our substitute teachers. I do agree with Ms. Bacchus, because before I was even on the committee, I did see it from the audience that we're seeing things like, well, it's only $2,000. It's only $5,000. It's only this, it's only that. But when you start to add up, it comes with a huge figure. And I know for me, that was very concerning because it was like getting a surprise bill in the mail at the monthly meeting. So I do agree with Ms. Bacchus on that. I think personally that during this time with COVID, and now we have Mr. Baxter, and we basically changed things, and I agree, we haven't had any problems with it, having the threshold at 1,000. During COVID right now, and during these projects that you're thinking of getting done, I would say, why don't we try it out for a few months and see how it goes? And I do agree with Mr. Cornell. I would love a spreadsheet of what's going on, and I think the public would, has the right to see that. But I say we do a trial and see how it goes. I mean, we do have new people in there, and we could have maybe better communication now. So that's my thoughts on that. So,
Madam Chair,
yes, Ms. Bacchus.
one more thing on this.
Yeah.
I have a real problem with the vice chair approving purchases. It's never been done before, unless he is the chair because you are incapacitated for some reason. I feel that anything that needs to be approved over and above needs to be done by the chair only. And I'm sorry if you can't get a hold of the chair at that very minute,
I can do it.
You
Leave a message.
later.
I have a real problem with that. That is not the function of the vice chair. The function of the vice chair is to run meetings in the absence of the chair. That's what everybody has told me.
I called
Ms.
you.
Cobden herself said that those were her duties as the vice chair, which I didn't necessarily agree with, but be that as it may, if that's how it is, the chair is the only one who should be able to approve any expenditures that are emergency or otherwise.
Dr. Thornton?
Madam Chair, just for everyone's edification, we're talking about the wipes purchase for this next month. I did call the chair. I called the vice chair. The vice chair called me back and he did give me the okay. Within minutes, the chair called back and also okayed it as well.
Well, I'm asking that from now on, the only one that gets called is the chair, and you wait for the chair to call back. I mean, the vice chair has never done a budget and doesn't understand, and I'm not even going to go there because I know that the audience will start throwing daggers at us. But the fact is that it is the duty of the chair, and if there's an emergency, it needs to go through the chair. Nobody should be doing anything outside of the chair knowing,
I think, Madam Chair.
unless he or she is incapacitated.
I think, Madam Chair, this speaks back to the question at hand, the limit. And if we're at that $1,000 limit, there are many more issues with this type of thing. And, sometimes, especially in a pandemic, things happen. And I would hate to think we don't have what we need for our schools.
Could I chime in for just a moment, Madam Chair? I'm looking at policy DJC. Now, what's on the website does not appear amended, Mr. Cornell. That doesn't mean perhaps the website hasn't been updated. So I do want to be clear, I may not be looking at the most recent policy, but what that policy says, in the event of emergencies, the superintendent and CFO will contact the school committee chair or designee for authorization for expenditure. So at least with the situation of the wipes, I think that was
Whatever you want.
policy DJC, but again, I'm not entirely sure it's the most updated because Mr. Cornell seems to think we revised this when we switched the spending limit. He may be right. I can't recall.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Mr. Testa?
Thank you. Obviously, Mr. Hennish, you're going to check. I don't remember us changing the policy. I think we just approved this at a meeting.
We did.
Yeah, I don't remember us doing a policy because that would have been a policy read and second read. But
And I
double
would have
check it to
been-
make sure. I think we just voted as a body to just change it. So we may not, to Mr. Cornell's point, I don't think we'd have to change a policy to do this.
Thank you, Mr. Testa. At this time, are we going to take an action, make a motion to raise the threshold to 5,000?
I move approval on Mr. Baxter's proposal as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Madam
Aye.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Cornell.
Nay.
So I just wanted
Nay.
to add to the motion that regarding the reports that we receive a report of $500 to $5,000 at every meeting.
So technically that motion was already made and passed. You may need to make a separate motion, Mr. Cornell.
Okay, then I make a motion that every monthly meeting, the Director of Finance makes a report of all expenditures, $500 to $5,000 to be made available to the Warwick School Committee and the community on the Warwick Public Schools website, and that it will be on the agenda and under discussion / action if anybody on the school committee has any questions on any of those previous purchases.
Mr. Baxter?
Yes, if I may add, or just to clarify, could we make that report, I guess, or structure the motion so that the report is an addendum to the monthly fiscal report, if that would be acceptable. And that way it doesn't have to be a separate agenda item or anything like that. It'll just flow with the rest of the fiscal report if that's acceptable.
That's completely fine. So in addition to this motion, I would like to say that it would be this report would be part of the monthly fiscal report, and that the documents be made available to the school committee and the public.
Thank you, Mr.
Madam Chair, I would second it, but Mr. Cornell said it would be placed on the agenda for discussion and action. If the expenditure is already made, I don't know what the action that can be taken would be. It would be an agenda item for discussion, right? But not action.
Thank you, Mr. Testa. I actually have to agree with Mr. Testa on that. I think it should just be a discussion.
So
Okay.
can we make a
that's
new
fine.
motion? Mr. Hennius, can we
Why-
withdraw it and make a new one?
I mean,
Hello?
Oh, sorry.
Hello?
I hear something, but I. So
Can you
let's,
hear me?
It's
Hello?
Miss Bacchus.
I hear her.
Hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I lost my computer, unfortunately. I lost my computer feed. You know, why are we going to discuss this? It's done and over with. We put this there for a purpose. If you don't want to do it, why is there going to be a discussion? So more people can keep talking and lengthen the meeting?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Cornell?
Yeah, so I'm completely fine with discussion, no action, but this is just so the public knows why these expenditures were made. So if anybody's school committee has a question, they can ask that question, and therefore the public knows the reason why that expenditure is made.
So I think because the motion's already been made and seconded, and you can make an additional motion if you want. The other thing that you can do is just advise Mr. Baxter that per this discussion, it's the school committee's request that he include, well, I mean, basically what he's offered, that he include a listing in those in his monthly report to the committee, and request that the school committee secretary include that as a discussion item on the agendas. So it'll be provided to you as it would in his monthly packet, and it'll be an agenda item so that it can be discussed to the extent necessary.
Thank you.
Second that, Mr. Hennius.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what I second.
Ms. Boning?
So the monthly fiscal report is always a discussion item on the agenda. I would, at this point, probably say under it, put like a addendum report.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So.
Is that satisfactory, Mr. Cornell?
Voted.
Yeah, so should Mr. Henny, should I just start the motion over or amend it, or?
I think to keep this clean, I don't even know that you need a motion. I think Mr. Baxter understands that he needs to include that report in his monthly report, and Ms. Bonag is going to put a subheading underneath the current heading, which will allow for it.
Thank you, Mr. Hennius.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, now we're on to our last, I believe, our last item, which is discussion action, in-person school committee meetings. That would be for the committee. Do I have anybody that would like to start?
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes, Mr. Testa.
Thank you. I support meeting in person to the extent that those of us who can. As long as we continue to live feed the meetings, I think that this is something that's been beneficial to the community. So I'm willing to meet anywhere, anytime, any place. I realize some of my colleagues can't do that, and that's fine. So they could Zoom in, and then we could still live feed the meeting. I would fully support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Testa.
Could I wait for one moment, Madam Chair?
Hold on. I got Dr. Thornton.
So Mr. Hennius first.
Oh, Mr. Hennius.
I'm sorry, but just to clarify, I think to answer Mr. Testa's question, given the COVID crowd restrictions and everything else, I think what would logistically how that would look is members of the school committee or administration who were able, if you have a big enough room and we keep below whatever the mandated number is at that time, whether it's 10, 15, 20, that would be acceptable, but you'd still have to broadcast the meetings virtually because you simply, at least as far as I know, we don't have a venue that would be able to accommodate the public with the social distancing requirements and the indoor requirements. So you would basically just have what's going on here to some extent in person, but the meeting would still be a Zoom meeting, would still be virtual with the public participation that way.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. I'm sorry. I should have been
Madam
clear.
Chair, Madam Chair.
Bacchus, Dr. Thornton's had his hand up for a while.
So Madam Chair, to paint the picture, if you do choose to do this, one option would be the Gorton space in the old library area. If you could picture the two tables with the committee socially distant, the Promethean board on for any persons that aren't available will be on the board. And then the various directors spaced intermittently over a couple rows facing the Promethean board. And then we would have the camera or the YouTube feed in the back of the room. So I do envision it all fitting in that space. And we'd certainly, have the air purification items down there as well to make sure we're compliant there. But that's one good space as an example where you could do this.
Ms. Bacchus?
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Testa and the superintendent, if we do this, so it will be taped, it will be videotaped, we won't be on our computers sitting in the room?
Dr. Thornton will answer your question,
Yeah,
Ms.
so,
Bacchus.
Madam Chair, there are certainly different ways to skin the cat here, but if you were an active participant in the room, you would be there, speaking live in the meeting with a camera filming you, either wide angle lens or zooming in, still being YouTube. That's not to say you couldn't have your computer on, using your computer as a computer, but no, you wouldn't be zooming, being in the same room of the meeting itself. The Zoomers would be the ones on the Promethean board, not in the room.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Adams.
My biggest concern with the Gorton Library is as we've had numerous issues, and we had an issue earlier this evening with the internet going out at the administration building. First of all, I feel like that absolutely needs to be resolved first. Also, I'm in the camp of being distanced is the best route. I mean, as Mr. Testa said, some colleagues can't meet in person. I am one of those colleagues for reasons that are personal. And that's my say on that.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Cornell.
Yeah, so I would be fine like us resuming meeting in person, but however, I think because some members might be able to attend, maybe we can have a thing that they can dial in, or like if they're unable to attend, so they can still participate in meeting, but they just wouldn't be able to attend a certain meeting because it's COVID right now, so we don't know what might happen and what situation a person might be in.
Yes.
Also,
Okay.
I think the if we have a meeting, I think it should only be the school committee, the superintendent. I think other administrators would have to call into the meeting because I don't think it'd be good to have too many of us in one room.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell. I do.
Chair,
Hold on.
Chair.
Hold on.
I can't see you. I'm sorry.
I know, I was speaking. Mr. Cornell, just going to reiterate what was just said. We're going to be able to have people come in through Zoom. They will show up on the Promethean board. So they will be part of it. They just won't physically be in the room. So everybody will still be included, like Mr. Adams. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Bacchus.
Chair, I do not understand why anyone would want to keep administrators out of the meeting.
No,
I mean, and put them on Zoom. No, wait a minute, and put them on Zoom, which is what Mr. Cornell just talked about.
Well, I can.
That's what he just said he wanted. I complete and vehemently disagree with that. It shouldn't be us and Dr. Thornton and our attorney. That defeats the purpose. We may as well stay on Zoom.
Dr. Thornton?
Yeah. Madam Chair, I think really the size of the space would dictate the number of people in the meeting. We'd certainly get back to you on that. But if you can envision, the school committee in the two tables on either side of a Promethean board, the directors, I believe, could fit socially distant in 3 or 4 rows in between the school committee and the back of the room where the camera would be. So we can get back to you on the size of the room and the COVID limits, and we'd let you know how that looks.
Thank you, Dr. Thornton.
If I may?
Yes, Ms. Bacchus.
And what we could do is set up a podium so when there are issues, that particular administrator who's in charge of that area can come up to the podium, which will have, a speaker or what have you, and a microphone, and they can speak to us and to the people on Zoom so that everybody can see what's going on.
Thank you, Ms.
And
Bucket.
there's plenty of
Anyone else? I would just like to speak. It's been a very long time for this committee being apart and doing it on Zoom. I think, I'll speak for myself, I'm zoomed out. I miss being physically with my people, you know, my colleagues, and being able to interact. I think the community needs to know that we can't just call each other up and talk and talk freely. We can talk to one person, but if we talk to another, then we have like a quorum. It's called a quorum. So
rolling quorum.
right. So we can't really just be together and speak whenever we want. I'm highly compromised, but I'm willing to do this because I'm just zoomed out. I'm totally zoomed out.
Could I make a suggestion, Madam Chair, and maybe ask the administration to come back with with sort of a detailed plan as to how that would look? Because again, it will depend somewhat on the venue, you know, the executive order in place at the time, and how, you know, technology wise, I'm sure that they'll want to look at as well.
Is Mr. Taylor here?
I was just looking for him. I don't see Dr. Taylor.
He's here.
Oh, there he
Right
is.
in front of you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dr. Taylor.
I'm so sorry, Dr. Taylor.
That's okay.
Any input on the technology side of doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would, a few things that popped up, right? So the issue of the internet signal at Gorton, this evening when I heard that this happened during the executive session, I reached out to Wally Computer Services. They've identified already this evening, I've been going back and forth with them all night, that it is a internet service provider issue. So they've put in a ticket with Ocean, which is our internet service provider. So we're hoping that that would be rectified. I would never, ever, as anybody would agree, guarantee 100% all the time that the internet will always work, because a pole could fall down outside and you never know, you know, with the internet. So, but that is certainly something we didn't experience in prior meetings. This has been like a new glitch last week and this week. As for the actual setting of the room, I completely agree that we'd have to measure out and see exactly the spacing, make sure we're in compliance with the executive orders on number of people, just as we did with the classrooms and the return of students, and to make sure that we had adequate spacing throughout. As far as the technology, it would definitely be a case where we would want to trial run different solutions in there with different cameras, multiple cameras, different angles, but to the end user, the folks that are watching our meeting at home, which I think this is the most important thing to ensure that the public is part of this process and sees this process, is that to them it would look a lot like it does now, where they're watching this via a YouTube live stream. It's just the Brady Bunch boxes, if you would look a little bit differently, with a group of folks socially distanced apart in one box for them on the live feed, with different folks who couldn't make it in still different boxes. So to the community, they would still be active watchers of this process, which I think is important. But it would just be us testing it to make sure that we come up with a plan that folks look good too. You know, it's not great to have a camera far away, the wrong kind of camera, and somebody looks a little tiny on the screen and they don't feel as though they're able to see and connect with that person. So we would test this out and get back with what works and what doesn't, as well as things we may not even have that we need to either purchase or acquire to make this work for you.
Dr. Taylor, I have a question. How long do you think it would take? How much time do you need to do this to get back to us?
So I would start working on it immediately to try to talk to our team, our technicians, and our folks in district to see who's got the best idea. Because usually folks have different perspectives and different experiences. So I'd reach out to see what we could get for different ideas, and then from there, what kind of technology we have and need to get. So if it's stuff that we have in house and we can put it together relatively quickly, we could get together a demo, which I think would be a good test run. And short time, let's say, the next week or so. If it's stuff that we need to go out and acquire a camera because we don't have the right camera, or cabling because we don't have the right cabling, then that would be the process there. But, as mentioned earlier tonight on an earlier motion, that whole process is a little bit easier now to acquire some of that stuff. So, so that would be the process I would look at.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. I have a question. So our next meeting is on February 9th. That's our monthly meeting. Could this be done by the 26th or the 2nd so we could have a meeting just for this to go over it with the school committee? So possibly we could have the 9th live like that?
Sure. I think that I would say that the second would be definitely something that we would shoot for. I think it's good to have the goal and try to shoot for that. And
why don't we shoot for the 2nd? And in the meantime, I'll see if everybody can make it for the 2nd and the times that will work for everyone. And that way we can just, everyone can decide what they're going to do. Are they going to Zoom in or are they going to come here in person? We already voted. Did we vote yet? No, we haven't voted yet. So, Mr. Hennessy, should we wait to vote on the 2nd, or could we vote now and then people can decide what they want to do? We can't hear you. Your microphone's on.
Turned it off. I'm sorry. It sounds to me like Mr. Taylor, I would tentatively schedule a meeting, ask that this be the agenda item. I don't think you need to take a vote now. Mr. Taylor knows what his marching, Dr. Taylor, excuse me, Jeff, knows what his marching orders are, and he can put together a blueprint, if you will. And then if it works out at that particular meeting, you can vote to utilize that mechanism going forward. I think that would be, or I mean, you can take a vote right now to work towards getting back to in person. I just think that given what Dr. Taylor and Dr. Thornton have both said, it's not as easy as flicking a switch, so it may take a little bit of time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is everybody fine with that?
Madam Chair, I would move that we move this because it doesn't have a date on it, right, Mr. Ennis? There's no date on when we would start. Well, all we're saying is we would vote to go back to live meetings, pending, right? I would like to get this out there.
Pending more information from the administration.
Right.
Yep.
So
That's fine.
I would move approval on the agenda item to go back into, bear with me, in-person school committee meetings, pending work by Mr. Taylor and administration to make sure it's possible.
Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, I guess second for discussion. Included in that would be, obviously, if you are not able to be in person meetings, yours.
Absolutely, Mr. Adams. No one's going to force you to do that. No one. If you are not comfortable, and it might come to a point where I'm not comfortable, but I'm going to try it. I understand, Mr. Adams. I understand your situation and respect it. I will respect anybody whether they want to come or not come, because you're still going to be part of the meeting. I'm just saying, personally, I'm zoomed out and I want to technology. I just want to be with my colleagues. It runs smoother. Do I have a second?
I did second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. So what we'll do is I'll get in touch with everyone, or you can message me for the 2nd, for February 2nd, to have a little show by Dr. Taylor about how this will operate. In the meantime, I would suggest if you want, you can come and look at the room if you haven't been in it. I'm actually going to do it. I haven't spent much time in there, but I am definitely looking forward to possibly having people get together, and I appreciate your work on this, Dr. Taylor. So at this point, I just will announce right now the future meeting is the monthly school committee meeting is on Tuesday, February 9th. Hopefully we'll be able to have that meeting on the 2nd, and At this point, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So after consulting with our attorney, Mr. Hennis, because I didn't technically vote on the regarding to change our financial policy because I had that question, so I didn't get to vote. So I just want to say that my vote was aye. He said I could do that as long as I announced during the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cornell. And
Thank
Ms.
you.
Corning will adjust her notes, I would imagine. Thank you. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, everyone.
Good night.
Safe, and we'll probably see everyone on this on that Tuesday, on the 2nd. Have a good evening, everyone.